Hi, and welcome back to the real, technically pregnancy talk, but this one we're going into labor and delivery, and postpartum, the first couple weeks of postpartum life. Um, yeah, and it is almost 12 o'clock at noon, so which is her next feeding time. So we need to try to do this quick. We'll see if that's possible with my mom brain now. You thought pregnancy brain was bad. Mom brain, in some ways, is almost worse. Um, but anyways, let's get on into it. Today is Friday. I got the day right this time. Friday, November 14th of 2025. This is the third video I'm recording today because my husband he has to work from home for a couple days because they have a big update, but then he gets 2 more weeks of parental leave, thank goodness, to spend with us. But because he had today off and I was feeling good enough and little Cece here is sleeping like a charm in our brand new baby carrier, I decided to film today. So, yay. So we're just getting all these videos out of the way that I wanted to record. Okay. Um, Labor, delivery, and postpartum. There is a whole, you know, rainbow, I guess. Yeah, there's a whole spectrum, a whole rainbow, if you will, of labor and delivery and postpartum experiences and stories and what people went through. Um, Mine was not fun. I will say that much. I was hoping because I had heard rumors. I was hoping but not prepared. I guess for an easy delivery. I was more prepared for the worst delivery because my dad always taught me you hope for the best, but you prepare for the worst. And that's kind of what I was going for with my labor and delivery. Um, so, anyways, so I guess it all kind of started week 35 of my pregnancy. That's when if you watch my last video, we went into the, they call it the emergency OB. Really, it's just their triage section of the labor and delivery unit at the hospital we went to, which is the University of Utah, in Salt Lake City. They're great. We love them. Took good care of us once I was in labor. um, but anyways, and so they, oh yeah, so anyways, we went in it was the very end of week 35. Literally, it was 35 and 6. We were one day away from being week 36. Um, Go in because I was having just a really big, major period cramp. It felt pretty moderate, and we didn't know what was going on. It lasted 30 to 40 minutes before we called them. And by the time we got in, it was still going on, and it had been basically an hour and a half because we lived about 40 minutes away from the hospital. Um, at least the hospital we chose to go to, I will say that. There are closer hospitals, but we wanted to go to this one for our labor and delivery. Um, Apparently what had happened is my uterus was just cramping as it was expanding as baby's head was dropping down. So that's kind of when lightning or the baby dropping started to happen. We really noticed it though in week 36. She was really low, and then especially in week 37, she just seemed to keep getting a little bit lower almost every day, which is good. That's what she was supposed to do. At week 35 and 6 days, I was 1 centimeter dilated and about 20% effaced, they said. So I was happy that things were happening, but not that I was in labor because we didn't want that to happen. We wanted a healthy full term baby. Um, or early term, I guess, is the new term for 37 and 38 weeks. Um, but, anyways, and so we went home. They gave me like a muscle relaxant that they said would not affect if I was having contractions, but it would help at least my uterus to relax and for me not to be in pain anymore. And it worked. I wasn't in pain. Thank goodness for that. But anyways, and so then we go through and I'm showing a few more labor signs through week 37 and 36 and 37. My mucus plug bits and pieces were coming out, through week 36 and 37. I was beginning to have, I would say they weren't regular contractions. They were more like, I feel like Braxton Hicks. They didn't necessarily hurt, or like were painful, but they weren't fun to experience either. But I would get that started out about 3 to 4 a day, and it gradually just increased over a couple weeks. Um, what else was happening? Oh, and then my hello. I know it's almost your feeding times. She's starting to wake up. But then we get to week 37, and we, well, the 2 days before, so Friday and Saturday, she was moving like nonstop. She was kicking and punching and rolling. And I told my husband, I'm like, she wants out. I'm like, I know she wants out because she is moving so much more than regularly. It wasn't, they say online that if they are moving more aggressively, I guess I should say, or with more intensity, so like punching and kicking harder, then that's when you want to like, you know, go in and get them checked out. Or I guess if they like it's really suddenly, they just suddenly start kicking and punching really hard, then you want to go in. But she was moving with the same intensity. It was just more. She just moved more. Um, and so we just kind of kept an eye on it. I didn't have my water break, funny story, and I didn't have, um, like any bloody show or anything other than bits of my mucus plug again coming out over the course of a couple weeks, which is normal. Week 37, I go to my appointment. They check me out. I'm about 80-90% effaced, they said, and 1 centimeter dilated. So good. We're making progress. So me and my husband are like, okay, hopefully labor starts any day now. We wanted it sometime between week 37 and 38. But, we were approaching the end of week 37, and I was starting to kind of get a little sad that I was going to have to keep on going, for another month or so until my baby came out. Which was not the case. Spoiler alert. So we get to Friday, we go to dinner, we go get sushi, and I can't even make it through a full, avocado roll. So really easy on the tummy before I am feeling so nauseous. And also week 37, I was like just so exhausted. I was tired. I still like was able to do things, but my energy levels were just so low. Which made sense. My pelvis and back and stomach hurt more than usual. I guess not stomach, it was sore just from all the weight that I was carrying at that point. And yeah, and so that was just kind of, it was weird because I didn't get like an urge to nest, which a lot of people get right at the end. Which we were kind of waiting for that sign as well to show, but that one didn't. Oh, sorry, my alarm's going off. There we go. My alarm to feed her. We will make the rest of this as quick as possible. As long as we get her within about 30 minutes from now, we'll be just fine. But anyways, and yeah, so that was kind of where things started. And then on Saturday, I was definitely starting to feel more like regular contract. There's probably like 7 to 8 throughout the day, so not a ton. Not enough to where we were timing them yet either, but enough to where we were like, okay, we should start to think about it and just to like get everything kind of, a little more ready. And luckily our house was already clean. It was already, put in order, and we had everything packed and ready to go. The nursery was ready. We had our diaper caddies around the house ready. Everything was pretty good. And then on Saturday night, we go get tacos, and again, I can only eat like 2 or 3 before, and they're little tacos, little street tacos, before I am feeling super sick and nauseous. Which again is another sign of pregnancy, or not pregnancy, another sign of labor and delivery that it's near. But we didn't think anything huge of it because I'd been nauseous my entire pregnancy. But then Saturday, well, it was Sunday morning, technically at like 3 in the morning, I wake up and I am feeling like period cramps, and they're coming on. It was every few minutes, and so I started to time them because I could not go back to sleep at this point. Started to time them from about 3:20 in the morning to, I think it was about 5 or 6 when finally I woke Emma up. Um, it was, no, sorry, it was closer to 5. It was like 5:30 when I woke Emma up because they had started to, they weren't quite a minute in length yet, but they were about, 45 seconds in length, and they were pretty consistently about 5 minutes apart, and it had been going on consistently for an hour. And so anyone that's pregnant and is about to give labor knows the 511 rule that they say on the internet, which is where if you're having contractions that are about 5 minutes apart, that last for about a minute, and have been going on for an hour or more consistently, then you should go into the hospital because you're probably in labor. And so, oh, hello, mamas. I know. It's okay. Well, we might have to splice this one in two because she might need to be fed and changed. We'll see. You're okay, huh? We're talking about how you got here. Huh? You're okay. There you go. Good job. Good job. But anyways, and so we kind of debated for a little bit whether to go in or wait. So we waited about an hour longer and they stayed consistent. We had to wait about an hour because we wanted to get our girls in to my work to be boarded so that they had a place to stay. During that time, though, I got so stressed getting them into the kennel because we were trying to go as fast as possible, just trying to throw them into the kennel, and I got so stressed, which it does say online this could happen, that my contractions stopped for almost the entire drive to the hospital. And so we got there, and we were kind of just taking it easy. I was trying to relax again to get my body kind of back in where those contractions would pick up. And finally they started to. We ended up going and getting like Starbucks and then walking upstairs to labor and delivery. And they brought us back to their little triage place. And the lady checked me out and she's like, okay, you are only 1 centimeter dilated still. And so at that point, I broke down and I started crying. Oh, I'm going to cry now. The postpartum hormones are still definitely in me and the exhaustion from being up late at night. But at that point, it kind of hit me because I'm like, it's not going to happen for another probably week or two, and I'm going to have to keep on going with this hard burden of carrying this little one until she can get here safely. And so that was really hard. I broke down. All the nurses came in and are like, are you okay? I was like, yes, I'm sorry. And I felt so bad that I was crying. And basically one of the nurses said to me, and this is also what like just broke me down, but she was like, basically, if you are actually in labor and delivery, and this is the next time we need you to come in, either your water needs to break, haha, funny story, or you need to be having contractions every 2 to 3 minutes, lasting over a minute, about a minute to a minute and a half in length, and they need to be consistent for an hour before you come in. And when you are in here, if you're going through a contraction, if you're going through a contraction that is actually changing your cervix, you are not going to be able to speak because you're in so much pain, and you're hardly going to be able to breathe, and you can't talk, and you're not going to be able to move either. So I was like, well, I guess that this person knows what she's talking about, but also I've seen a lot of stories online where that's the opposite, and they're going into labor and delivery without, any of those like crazy pains, because all bodies are different. But I was like, okay. And so we left pretty defeated. There was a lot of tears on the way home. As we were trying to figure out my work for the next week and how I would be able to continue to work while I was going through contractions that were starting to get, worse and worse. Because they were getting worse and worse throughout that morning before we went into the hospital. So anyways, we got home. I took a nap. I got some rest. Woke up at about 3 in the afternoon. And my whole nap, I wasn't able to get like a nice straight nap. It was like I would go to sleep for a few minutes and then I would like half wake up because another contraction was starting and it hurt so bad that it woke me up. And so, we were kind of just going through the day at home really slow on Sunday. And finally about 3 o'clock rolled around and those contractions amped up huge. And so, like, all of a sudden, between then and 7, so in the course of 4 hours, because it was 3 to 4 hours, those contractions got really serious. I was squeezing my labor comb, which basically did nothing at this point. My cute husband tried getting me a hot water bath. That did nothing. We tried, there was everything in the book we tried. We got Tylenol, that did not help. We tried, back massage, that didn't help. We tried hot water, didn't help. We tried basically everything in the book that they recommended to do at home. Nothing was helping with the pain, even to soften it a little bit. The only place where I know, are you getting hungry? Yes, you're getting hungry, huh? It's almost your feeding time, I promise. But nothing was helping, and the only position where sitting was like bearable was on the labor ball, and that was not fun. Like, my husband was such a great support during that time. He was there with me through every single contraction, holding my hand and, helping me breathe through it and making sure that I was going to be okay. But finally, it was about 6:30 or 7 rolls around, and I turned to him and I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. Like, I do not know how I'm going to be able to keep going. But I don't think that, like, I'm going to be dilated. Like, well, and I knew that the car ride into the hospital to get checked out was going to be absolute hell because I would be sitting in a terrible position in a car for 40 minutes while we drove in. And then if, I wasn't dilated enough and they couldn't admit me, because you have to be 5 centimeters dilated at the U for them to admit you into L&D officially. They were going to turn us away and we were going to have to go back home, and then I was going to have another terrible car ride home. So we were kind of debating whether we just stay there or not. So finally we called them, and the nurse was like, well, we'd love to have you come in and get checked out, but, like, I can't say for certain. And so I asked him, like, if I was only 1 centimeter dilated this morning, like, how likely is it that I am at 5 right now? And she's like, well, it's pretty unlikely, but if you're, like, in that much pain, then we'd love to get you checked out. And so finally, after that, I called my mom. I know, sweetheart, I know. But I called my mom because I'm like, Mom, I am... Oh, I know. Can you give Mom just like 10 more minutes? Maybe. Yeah. But I called my mom because I'm like, Mom, I've never been through labor and delivery, and you have. Like, is this what you experienced? Like, were your contractions this bad? Like, what was it? And, like, should we go in? And so my mom finally was like, well, how much pain are you in? And I'm like, well, it's worse than my root canal pain. And she knew that's the worst pain. Oh, my alarm's going off again. She knew that's the worst pain I've ever been in. One of the only types of pain that's made me cry. And so she knew. So she actually ended up calling labor and delivery, got us on like a tray call, and was like, okay, we're getting you in. We're going to check you out. Like, we all think that's what's best. And so we, unfortunately, my work at that point had closed, but my brother and sister were so nice. They were like, we'll come over and stay with your girls until the morning, and then we'll check them into your work so that, they can be in a safe space and be with someone. And so we loaded up our car and drove the 40 minutes to the hospital. The entire 40-minute drive was like dead silent. I was white-knuckled holding the little thing on the side of the door to help you in and out. And then my labor comb, which again was doing nothing, but squeezing, I guess, kind of helped. And I was actually, during that car ride, I was kind of preparing myself to have the baby right there, because we weren't timing contractions every one, but the few that I did time on the way there were getting closer to 1.5 minutes in length. And online, people say that when they're closer to 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes in length, like, you're getting close to that transition phase, or you're in transition, which means your baby's gonna be coming out pretty soon. And so I was like weirdly preparing myself for that. My husband was just super quiet, trying to, get us to the hospital safely, but also trying to, help me breathe through my contractions. He was really sweet. He put the Beatles on music on, because he's like, if anything can help calm Mary, it's the Beatles. And so he put that on for the car ride. as we drove the 40 minutes to the hospital. We get there. I can hardly get out of the car because I'm in so much pain. Even like moving any type of direction hurts so bad at this point. Um, and so my husband gets me a wheelchair. We go to the valet parking, and so they park our car for us. We basically just grab my purse and yeah, and then like the keys and stuff, which we hand off to the valet, and then go in. When we're in, the nurse immediately just grabs the wheelchair from my husband because she can see that I'm in so much pain, and brings me to one of their little triage rooms, and starts to check me out. She does counter pressure on my legs as she's like trying to get me into a hospital gown so that she can, check my cervix to see where I'm at and see how she can best help me, which bless this nurse, she was so great. But they checked me and I was at 4 centimeters dilated already. So, in the course of a few hours, I was already almost to the 5, which is where active labor technically begins. So she's like, okay, we technically can't admit you yet, but you've like gone so quickly. I think if we give it an hour, you're gonna basically be there. And so she was like, we can't give you an epidural because we're not in labor and delivery. We haven't admitted you, but I can give you a dose of fentanyl, which is like the strongest drug we can give you right now. And that should, take the edge off things. And so at this point, I'm like, give me whatever. Like, I don't care. I know that, you guys aren't going to give me anything that's going to endanger my baby because we're in, a labor and delivery unit. It's just the triage part of labor and delivery. And so they quickly hook me up to the IV and give me a dose of fentanyl, which my husband was joking about the whole time. He's like, hi, you were given some fent in a very safe and controlled environment by a nurse. It did absolutely nothing. My contractions were so bad at this point. It did nothing. So we were laying there for about an hour. My mom had come in at that point. She had made it in time. And I like turned to her. I'm like, Mom, I'm so sorry if I say any naughty words. I remember this. And she's like, you do what you have to get through. Like, I can see that you're in a crazy amount of pain. Somehow, I don't think I swore once when I was in the labor and delivery unit. I swore a whole bunch at home, though, when I was going through those contractions. My husband, actually, when he was timing them, he knew how much pain I was in based on which swear words I would say and how often I would say them. And so that was kind of funny. So we put that in some of the notes of our contraction counter. But yeah, so that happened. The nurse leaves, and we're just sitting there for an hour as I am in like a crazy amount of pain still. My husband's holding my hand. My mom and like him, they're trying to like talk and keep, the situation light and relaxed, which was a huge help. The nurse like finally comes back and checks me again, and I am, in the course of an hour, I have gone from a 4 to a 6. I was 6 centimeters dilated. So they're like, oh, we got to get her into L&D real fast. And so they admit me, and they wheel my bed off as I'm, writhing in pain from all these crazy contractions, because they've gotten really close now and are lasting a long time. And so yeah, at this point too, I was kind of almost preparing myself for a natural birth because I'm like, I don't know how fast I'm contracting or I'm dilating. And if, I went from a 4 to a 6 in an hour, we're almost at transition. So we got to get this epidural in me quick, or it's not going to be, done in time for me to be in transition and into actual, delivery of my baby. And so, yeah, that they wheeled me off in the bed to labor and delivery. They helped me get into the labor and delivery bed, which was a lot comfier than the triage bed, thank goodness. And immediately the nurse was like, hello, this is my name. Do you want the, and I'd already told the people in triage that I wanted the epidural, so the nurses passed that information on to my actual labor and delivery nurse, who was awesome. And so they called the anesthesiologist in. He came almost right away, which was awesome. It was the anesthesiologist and then a resident that was working with him. I was in so much pain that this part was the worst. It shouldn't have been. Epidurals, typically, from what I saw online, and even from what my mom said, because my mom had one, they take about 10 to 15 minutes typically to place, and then about 20 minutes after that for it to like fully kick in. But the resident was the one putting in my epidural. And I, like, it took 30 minutes or longer for her to get it in. She had to keep numbing my back with like the topical numbing and replacing it, which I get. It like they want to place it correctly because otherwise technically they could paralyze me or their patients. So I do get that, but the amount of pain I was in was like crazy. I was like, please just have the anesthesiologist do this. My husband and my mom, who are very calm people, they were even like giving each other looks and being like, is this serious? Um, my labor and delivery nurse was great though. Every time a contraction came on, she came and gave counter pressure, which helped, relieve it at least enough for me to get through it. Um, just by pushing on my knees, it was crazy. I'm like, how does that even work? How does that make a lot of my pain go away? My husband was there holding my hand the whole time again. Finally, after 30 minutes, though, they get it in. It was to the point, too, where even I at one point was like, is it almost in? Can I almost have my pain relief now? And so yeah, finally they got it in, and they gave me a big dose because almost immediately I felt that pain relief. I was, numb from the waist down. I was still able to move my legs. I could hardly lift my right leg, but my left one I could lift and move a little bit better, which is normal with an epidural. Um, and then the labor and delivery nurse rechecks me at this point. It's been about an hour and a half ish since I had made it into the labor and delivery unit, and I was already at an 8, and so I was dilating very, very fast. They had two different doctors come in during this point. One of them came in to break my water, to break the water sac, because they're like, well, you haven't had your water break yet, so we're gonna do that. And then that's also when they rechecked me to see how dilated I was, and I was at an 8. So that was kind of crazy. And then my nurse was like, I think what might have happened actually is because when they were breaking my water, they were like, they said that they broke it. They're like, okay, well, we got the sack, but there's not a gush of water that just happened. And so she was like, she tried it a couple more times to get it, but she's like, okay, now I can't get the sack. I don't know what's going on. And so she's like, well, your water must have already broken or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's weird because clearly it hasn't. I haven't had a big gush of water. And so my labor and delivery nurse got one other doctor to come and check it out. And they kind of came to almost the same conclusion where they were like, okay, what probably happened is we did break your water, but your baby's head corked itself. Or no, sorry, they said my water broke earlier in the day, and that's why I was dilating so quickly. But my baby's head corked in my cervix, and so the water didn't gush out. But because there was all that pressure now on my cervix, which is good because that's what you want to happen during labor and delivery, that's why I was dilating so fast. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as baby was delivered, there was a big gush of water and all the amniotic fluid came out. But that's why I was dilating so fast and in so much pain, was because she corked her head in my cervix, which was kind of funny to think about. But yeah, so by the time the second nurse came to check, or doctor came to check my, amniotic sac again to make sure it had ruptured, I was 9 centimeters dilated, and that was only about 30-40 minutes after the first one. So my labor and delivery nurse at this point, she is like, okay, we're gonna like use a peanut ball, we're gonna get you real comfy, kind of move you positions a little bit so that baby can, wiggle down there as well, and baby can also, maybe get a little bit of rest as well before we push her out. And so yeah, I could not get any sleep though. I tried to get some shut-eye, but my eye was just on the fetal heart monitor the whole time, just making sure that she was okay. I couldn't feel any pain at this point. I could feel a lot of pressure. And also, I was at 9 centimeters. As soon as you're at 10, you're good to push. And so I was kind of waiting for, you know, when am I gonna feel the urge to push, and when is baby gonna come out? There's so many mixed emotions at that point. Most of them very good, but a lot of mixed emotions. And finally they come back in after it was about 30-40 minutes again. I think that they let me kind of chill and relax for a little bit when I got to 10, just to they said that they were all constantly though monitoring baby. They could see her heart rate and mine from their like little desktop where they went to get a little lunch break, or my labor and delivery nurse went to get a little lunch break, so she could keep monitoring me and baby while she was getting her break as well. Came back in though and was like, all right, we're gonna have a birthday party now, we're gonna push. And so got into pushing position, got all ready. They talked me through it, and we were doing it with contractions, which was weird because I could not feel anything. At that point, I actually gave myself, because they have like the push button where you could give yourself another dose of epidural. And so I went ahead and did that right before, because I'm like, I don't want to feel anything. I don't want to feel her coming out. I know, mamas, I know. I know, it was probably pretty traumatic for you too. Anyways, we did a practice push, and then the next push, she came all the way and started crowning. And they were like, wow, you're really good at this. And within an hour of pushing, I had a mirror too, so I could see what was going on. I know you're hungry. I'm gonna probably have to stop. You're okay. You're okay. I know. I know, mamas. There you go. Good job. But anyways, after an hour of pushing, she came out. Weirdest feeling, but also best feeling. You're okay. It's okay. You're okay. Hey. Hey, mamas. Alright, we're gonna have to pause it here while I feed her and change her diaper. But we will be back. We'll be back with your birth, huh? So we'll see you in a second. Alright, and we are back almost 2 hours later. Yeah, fed little one, changed her diaper, did all that stuff, and then we had some lunch, and then my girls needed to be walked. So since we now have this lovely baby carrier, I was able to try walking them by myself for the first time, which was awesome, and it worked really well. And I think that they'll be fine with the stroller too. This just makes it easier for, their quick potty walks. So yay, that was very exciting. Anyways, we ended off right as little Celeste was making her entrance into the world. So yeah, we pushed for about an hour. It was like an hour and 6 minutes was what it said on my my outpatient, or like my discharge notes or whatever. So yeah, pretty quick, which was good, or quick for first time, which I heard, so that was good. I think a lot of it, one, was I couldn't really feel anything. I could feel a little bit of pressure, but nothing like crazy. I'll go into this a little more. I did tear in 2 places. I got 2nd-degree tears, nothing like super major, but did tear a little bit down there, which is, again, very normal, especially for first-time moms. I did want to go more into like doing perineal massages and a little bit of prep, at least at home, for that, but we kind of ran out of time and I was too lazy at the same time. What else was there? Oh yeah, but anyways, so practice pushed once, and that got her all the way down to where she was crowning already, which was awesome. And then after that, it was about an hour of other pushing. Didn't feel like that because you're doing it with contractions, so you push for like 10 seconds, take a short breath, push again, short breath, push again, and then by then usually your contraction's over, and so you you rest until your next one comes on. And mine at that point, I couldn't feel when a contraction was happening because I had a lot of epidural in me at that point, which was good, at least for me, because that was one of my fears, is that I would be in a lot of pain and feeling all of that while she was coming out. Um, but no, so yeah, anyways, and so then we pushed for about an hour. She was crowning, and then finally her head popped out. They pulled the rest of her out as well. Um, and yeah, she did cork her head because as soon as they pulled her out, there was a huge gush of water, which usually doesn't happen. And then, yeah, obviously blood and everything. And immediately we did skin to skin. Her first APGAR score was an 8, second one was a 9. The reason it wasn't all the way up there was because she got a lot of like mucus and kind of amniotic fluid stuck in her nose and lungs. She could still breathe. She was just coughing a lot. Um, and they could tell her chest, if you watch their chest and kind of stomach, if it sucks in, and you can see their rib cage. I forget the exact like term for it, but that means that they are having some issues breathing. So they ended up taking her for about 10 minutes over to the little like incubator table where they can do some more one-on-one work. Um, and they were able to get enough of the mucus out there. Emmer was with her the whole time, just watching her as they were, doing everything else on me. And then as soon as she was done and was like better at breathing, they brought her right back over and we did our golden hour. So we got an hour of skin to skin time, which was awesome. Really, it seemed like it was going to be like, at least from like what I was hearing and picturing, it seemed like that hour was going to be pretty silent after we gave birth, which I don't know why I was picturing that. But no, there was a lot going on during that hour. One, we were trying to latch to breastfeed, and so because that's how I feed her and how I wanted to. And so I had the nurse, well, one nurse was kind of helping me out with that and helping me learn how to do that. Um, and then they also, when she wasn't latched, they were giving her shots. She got the vitamin K and the hepatitis B. And then also there's an eye ointment. It's called like the erythromycin or something. I can't pronounce it correctly. But they put that on their eyes so their eyes don't get infected in the first little bit of life. And so they put that on her. Emmer got to cut the cord. They did that really fast. I wanted like a little photo op or potentially a photo op of them cutting the cord, but no, they like brought her out. They did the delayed cord clamping for about a minute. And then as soon as I was over, they're like, okay, Dad, cut here. So then Emmer came and cut the cord, and yeah, so that was done. What else? Oh, I also opted in to get an IUD just put right in me because we don't want no more babies. And so they were doing that. They have to do that. I learned within 10 minutes of the baby or the placenta being delivered. My placenta, I felt like they almost just pulled it out because it came right out. Like it was, like I delivered the placenta, I think within about 5 to 10 minutes after birth, which again was awesome because we didn't want that to take a long time. Some people I heard it can take up to 30 minutes, so glad that at least for me was pretty quick and seamless. I didn't even feel it come out, honestly. I didn't even have to push it out. It just kind of slid right on out of me, which was good. What else was going on? Oh, and then after they put the IUD in, they had to stitch me up, obviously, because I tore in 2 places, so I did get stitches down there. And then really by the time that was all done, everything was clean and they got me changed into like a new gown and like, kind of the sheets changed so I wasn't sitting in a pile of blood and amniotic fluid. That had really been like the whole hour that had happened. Really sweet time with my baby because I got she was opening her eyes for the first time and trying to look around and see the world and trying to figure it out. But also a really crazy time as well, just because there was a lot going on. But very glad that we got that time to bond right at first for a little bit. A lot of people do. I was worried because there are some people that see their baby or like meet their baby for the first time, and it does take them a little bit to bond with the baby. And at first I was relieved because I was like, finally this thing is out of me, and I can like start to get my body back. Um, and so that was kind of like the first little bit of emotion, but then second bit was just making sure she was okay, because of her coughing and her nasal. I knew she was gonna be fine, otherwise there would have been more alarm in the room. There was not a lot of alarm in the room. They were just trying to get the gunk out of her to help her just have an easier time breathing. Um, but then after that, and after we kind of got to, settle in a little bit, and I got to look at her in the eyes and really hold her and start talking to her and making sure she was okay. That's really when it hit of just how much I really do love this little girl and how special she is and just how amazing. So glad it didn't take very long for like all that to hit. It definitely hit more. It was after the first night. Because she was born at 2:02 in the morning. So she's a night owl like her mom. Which I was glad she was born late at night instead of like super early in the morning. She made it nice and quick for us. But yeah, we were only in the labor and delivery section for, it was less than 6 hours from the time we got there to the time she was delivered. We got to, and then after that, they put us in a wheelchair. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. There we go. Sorry, food came up the wrong pipe. Yeah, they put us in a wheelchair and wheeled us off to our recovery room, which was in oh my goodness, sorry. In a much more secure, well, labor and delivery was very secure, but the maternal ward was very, very secure. They had like a front desk. You had to have a code to get in, and there could only be so many people in a room at a time. And obviously, you as the mom have a bracelet. My husband Emmer had a bracelet, and then baby had a bracelet. And they all have a matching number. She had on her ankle, it's like a security bracelet, so if she's moved out of the maternal ward, like sirens will go off so that they can't kidnap kids from there, which thank goodness. But yeah, so all of that kind of happened. Put in our maternal ward. My mom was in the labor and delivery room with us, but my dad, brother, and sister had come out to see her, so we each took turns coming in to see her for a little bit before we went off to bed. We started going off to bed right around it was like 5 in the morning, because we finally were settled in our room and able to get a little shut-eye. As soon as we went to bed, though, of course, my Pitocin that they had given me in an IV, that went off and to signal that it was done. So that was nice. We got about 5 minutes of sleep, and then that went off. Luckily, baby girl was sleeping like the whole time. She was sleeping almost the entire first day. We had to really wake her up to feed her. But yeah, that went off, and then went back to sleep for about 20 minutes, and then another nurse came in. They had to draw some blood because I had shown signs of postpartum, now I can't think of the word, postpartum hypertension. Not quite like eclampsia or preeclampsia, but I just had shown at some point during labor and delivery a spike in my blood pressure, and so they just wanted to keep checking that. And so and they monitor that very closely with everyone in that unit, which I was very grateful for. Yeah, they drew the blood, make sure that everything was looking good, and then we went back to sleep for just a little bit before we had to wake up to feed her again. And so that started we were up for basically 48 hours for that first day and a half. Just because of me waking up super early the night before having contractions, and then spending the whole night awake due to being in labor. and delivering our baby. And then, yeah, there was just a lot going on in that first few hours that we were in our postpartum room, in our recovery room, I guess. And so we weren't really able to get a lot of sleep. And then after that, we had a bunch of visitors show up, which we were very grateful for. Um, but it was a lot because we had my sweet mother-in-law who flew in first thing in the morning, and then my sister-in-law flew in a little later that afternoon, which we loved, having them and having them be able to spend time with our new little addition to the family. I know, but it was just a lot because we were trying to recover and trying to figure out excuse me, how to take care of a baby. Luckily, everyone was really, really sweet and kind when it was time to, feed her. They would, kindly step out so that I could figure it out and have the time needed to learn to breastfeed her and to get her to learn to suck because, yeah, babies don't come out knowing how to eat. Like, they have a sucking reflex, but they don't know really where their food is or what is food and what isn't, and so you kind of have to teach them. So it is excuse me, it is a learning curve, and I'm glad that I did some more research on breastfeeding before going in to to have a baby, which we'll go into that in a second, but it is very difficult. But anyways, yeah, so the first 2 days we were in the hospital. I guess the only 2 days we were in the hospital. We did have a lot of visitors, which we loved and appreciated, but it was a lot. And so we got home. Finally, we were discharged. We got home. It was almost like 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and everyone was like, "Hey, can we come over?" And we were like, "Sorry, we're not gonna have visitors tonight. We need a second to settle in, make sure the baby's okay, and then get all of our stuff in order." And then the next day we did have some visitors over again, which was great. But yeah, it was a lot. You have many people that love you very much. But yeah, so first 2 weeks postpartum, not terrible. While I was at the hospital, it wasn't bad at all. I was up walking around and carrying the baby even, and sitting and standing and moving around, which the nurses did encourage. They're like, "You're not terribly, ripped down there, and so if you feel like you can and should move, it will help with the healing process." And so we started to do that a little bit more. Going to the bathroom sucks postpartum. Even still, I'm like, this just sucks because you don't want to wipe down there because you're going to irritate your stitches and the healing that's going on down there. And especially right after, it's so sore and tender. You don't want any type of friction. And so you do use a peri bottle, which is basically just a bottle you can squirt water down there. The best ones, though, are the upside down peri bottles. I have the one from Freedom Mom. It's been a game changer. That one I keep upstairs. I keep the one they gave me from the hospital down here to use during the day when I'm a little more awake and cognitive. But the Frida Peri bottle is great. The hospital I was working at, one of the nurses was like, "We're actually working on getting the upside down ones because they're so much better." So hopefully they have those in the future for new moms and stuff. Yeah, so because I had an epidural, I had a catheter in. So the first couple of times, peeing really sucked and it stung really bad. But I learned how to, do it as that area was healing to make it not hurt as bad pretty quick. Yeah, and then you have these giant pads. They're basically just the ones they gave, they're this big. They're like diapers, and they cover, all of the all of the mesh panties that they give you while you're there. And it is basically you're having the biggest period of your life, which makes sense. You're shedding all of that, the lining and all the nutrients that the baby, was using while, she was in the womb. So it makes sense that you're doing all that and kind of flushing that area out to restart. Um, but yeah, I didn't have any huge blood clots come out. I know they tell you if there's anything bigger than a golf ball, which is like this big, um, to tell your nurse. Um, which that when I heard, I was like, am I seriously gonna have like blood clots that big? I didn't have huge blood clots ever come out, um, which was good. Um, the other terrible thing is, I guess when we're on going to the restroom after. The first postpartum poop. That is terrible. Like, so when I was giving birth, I asked my husband after, I was like, did I poop while I was pushing? And because I didn't feel it. And he's like, no, you actually didn't. Which he was surprised. I had prepared him. I'm like, I'll probably, most people poop when they are pushing a baby out because it's the same muscles. And so he was prepared just in case that were to happen. But no, he said that I did not do that while pushing, which makes sense because my bowel movements are pretty regular, and that is not the time that I have bowel movements. But it took a good two, no, what was it? It was like 3 to 4 days before I actually had a bowel movement. Um, and there were some people that I was reading online that was like, our nurse didn't let us leave until I pooped. And I was like, wait, really? Like, that sucks. My nurses were like, as long as you're passing gas, that's showing us that your bowels are still like working and moving. It's just gonna take some time for it all to get back going because you did have trauma down there. Which makes sense. They gave us in the hospital a bunch of Miralax, just as a stool softener to help with that first one. But my first postpartum poop was a little bit tougher because it was what I'd eaten the couple days before that was coming out instead of all the stuff mixed with the Miralax. So it was a lot difficult, and it hurt, not necessarily like on my stitches because I did brace them as instructed on the interwebs and by the pelvic floor specialist that came in to talk to us before we left. Um, but it was just really strenuous. They recommend too that you don't spend more than 5 minutes on the toilet at a time for your first like couple weeks at least, or at least until like you're feeling better. So that was hard because like I'd be like, I feel like I need to go. And then I'd go and I'd sit on the toilet for like 5 minutes and nothing would happen. And so it was like, well, I guess we'll try again later. And so that really sucked. But once it got going, after the first couple times, it was fine. And now everything's back up to, running just like it did before I was even pregnant. So we love that. Obviously, there's still more healing to be done down there, but everything is like at least back in, running as it should be. So that is good. The other thing, I did not swell in the hospital. I got home and then we went to sleep. I woke up the next morning and like my legs were like they were huge and swollen. And it was basically like from my hips down, or the waist down, I'll say. That it just sucked because like it just made you uncomfortable and it made it harder to move around. But I did just do a lot of rest, elevating my legs. I slept with a pillow under my feet to elevate them at night, and that cleared up within about 5 days. Which is what, again, the internet said, if it doesn't clear up within about a week, then you want to be alarmed and maybe tell your provider if it doesn't start getting better, I guess. So that was a swelling. Yeah, so that kind of sucked. Oh, the other thing when you're in the hospital is they come in and they do have to massage your uterus. They especially have to feel for where your fundus is or the top of the uterus to make sure that it is shrinking and contracting correctly. Because if it doesn't shrink, essentially what can happen is postpartum hemorrhaging, and that's because the blood vessels are left, big and exposed instead of shrinking down back to where they were pre-pregnancy. And so they do like massage it to help with that. And they call it a massage. It is not a massage. It hurts so bad. They the first couple didn't hurt at all because I still have like, a bunch of pain meds in me. But once those were out, like the first and second day we were in our recovery room, It sucked so bad. And every time the nurse came in, she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's fine. Trust me, the contractions were worse, but this does suck really bad. Um, but yeah, that was fun, I guess. Yeah, and they really do just send you home with Tylenol and ibuprofen. Thank goodness it's ibuprofen though, because that works so much better for me than Tylenol ever has. Um, and so now I'm already down to only taking, because they say you just take it as you have pain. I probably honestly could be off of it, but I am down to 2 every 6 hours. Um, we'll probably over the weekend go down to just 1 every 6 hours, just to kind of help with swelling and stuff, and then I'll be off of it hopefully by late next week. That would be nice. Um, but yeah, so that's that. Oh, and then the other thing that nobody really talked about, or at least that I heard when researching postpartum, um, there is, because of all the hormonal changes, and especially if you have stitches, and just also because you're healing down there because of the trauma of, birthing a human being, there comes an intense itching down there. Like, I'm talking, at least this is what I remember experiencing during puberty, is like that level of itching down there. Um, the last couple of days, it has gotten a little bit better. As we've tried to just dry the area out. A lot of it too, a lot of people online said that it could also be, it's called like dermastasis or something, which is just from having like all the pads on there constantly and diapers, because then that's holding moisture down there, and that can cause a skin irritation and reaction. And you're putting all these different creams and topical treatments down there, which do help, and they help with the healing and help with the swelling, but it also, again, it locks moisture down there, and which can cause a reaction. So yeah, I read online someone like was drying the area out, and that seemed to help. And so I've been working on doing that and really just like really cleaning down there when I do go to the bathroom, and that seems to have helped a lot. Um, so yay, hopefully that keeps up because it sucks. Um, but yeah, I think that's all of the, like, at least postpartum stuff for me. Um, so I guess we can go on to breastfeeding. So I have chosen to breastfeed baby, because that is, from my research, that's what's best for her, and it's free. Like, my milk is free. I know. I'm sorry. I moved it. I know. I'm so mean. There you go. She doesn't like it when you move things on her head. But anyways, I'm glad that I did research before of how, like, breastfeeding, how you want it, the latch to look, how to latch, how to, like, help your milk supply, and, like, what is colostrum, like, kind of all those things. And I'm glad that in that I learned that it is very difficult, number one, and number two, if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. Luckily though, I stuck with it for the first, it was really like 3-4 days. It was really hard, and mainly it was hard because she was so sleepy. So I would get her finally like a good latch on, and she would start sucking for a couple minutes, and then she would just fall right back asleep. And it's like, no, you need to eat, little one, you need to keep eating. And so yeah, we had to do all sorts of tricks to keep her awake, especially when we were at the hospital to feed. um and luckily she did start getting enough. She was producing enough, diapers. That's how you tell they're getting enough food, is how many diapers are like wet and then soiled as well. um Especially if you're breastfeeding, because you can't track how much they're actually getting, so you just have to make sure they have enough, dirty and wet diapers. But it was really hard. One other thing that I didn't learn until I was in the hospital is your baby can have a preference as to which boob they like to eat off of. Um, and a lot of that can come down to flow. I didn't realize your breast can have different flow rates of like how your milk comes out. It can also come down to your nipple shape, which can be different. Mine are, and so she has a preference as to which one she likes. So that was like a really weird thing to learn about and experience. And so when we were meeting with the lactation consultants, it was always, on the boob that she didn't like. Just trying to figure out how to get her to latch there and how to get her to like that milk a little more. Um, which she's fine with it now. It does still take her a second to get latched, but it's nowhere near as difficult as it was at first. Um, but now she's like, when she's on, she's fine. Whereas at first she would latch and then, get off because she didn't like it, and then get back on because she was fussy, but then she would unlatch again because she didn't like it. So there was a lot of that. But yeah, we stuck with it, and now it's going really good. Like, we do it every 3 hours, and she's fine. It is very physically exhausting, and I think also mentally and emotionally exhausting in weird ways, on my body, but not in the way pregnancy was. It's a way that, like, I'm like, I can handle this. Like, yes, I have, sometimes emotional breakdowns because I am on a hormonal high and my body's changing, and now I have this little thing that, not thing, this little love of my life that I need to take care of and make sure that she's okay. Um, but and it's different than like pregnancy, pain and suffering. And so I would much rather have this than I would be pregnant again any day. Um, and we have started pumping because we're trying to increase our supply a little bit. And we need to I would like to get a stash going for when I go back to work. Obviously, it's not a lot right now because we're still just doing a little bit because that's all she needs. But we're paying attention to her cues and her eating cues and feeding when she needs to. So that's been really good and really fun. Yeah. And the doctor says she looks great too, and that she's doing great, even though she's just a tiny bit below birth weight, which she's supposed to be there. Technically, they say by 14 days, that's when they want them. But I was reading online, a lot of breastfed babies don't get there till 3 weeks, and so that made me feel a little bit better. And then the doctor was like, "You're fine, don't worry about it. We'll come back next week and reweigh her." So yeah, but that is like a weird, like, it's like a mom guilt thing that you have, is like, is my baby getting enough food and am I doing enough for her? And that's been something that like I've really had to like not really deal with, but like just try to wrap my head around, because obviously we're doing everything we need to. We're feeding her, we're changing her diaper, we're giving her a safe space, and we're loving her, and letting her sleep. We're not keeping her up. And that's all she needs right now. But it's like a weird thing where it's like, okay, when she's crying and fussy for no reason because she's learning to self-soothe and she's going through all these changes, and she's already been fed and already had her diaper changed, but she's still just like yelling and screaming. It's like a weird thing of, okay, am I doing enough for this baby, and like, how can I help her and calm her down and take that pain away from her? And it's like a weird mom guilt thing you have to deal with. But a lot of that always comes back to me thinking about food and if she's getting enough. But we know that she is. It's just like a weird thing that you kind of deal with as a mom. But yeah, so that's breastfeeding. The biggest thing too at the hospital, I did not bring my boppy, which I should have. We were kind of in a rush out the door, and I didn't necessarily want to get it dirty. I had heard mixed things about bringing it and not bringing it, because the hospital has plenty of pillows. But the pillows at the hospital are terrible. Like, literally, the lactation consultant came in and she would go grab like 6 pillows and like stack them all around me, so I had enough support, as I was learning how to do this. Now I'm fine. Now I can do it even without the boppy. I know how to do it well enough. But yeah, the boppy is probably our most used item, not only for feeding, but also for holding her during the day. Your arm gets tired, so it's nice to be able to rest her on there while you're still holding her. But yeah, so if you do have a boppy or a breastfeeding pillow, I would recommend bringing it to the hospital. It will make the start of your journey hopefully just a little bit easier. But yeah, so and then use those resources and meet with those lactation consultants Everyone, even though a couple of them were really emotional, I've been to 3 of them. Well, I've had 3 different lactation consultants that I've met with now between the hospital and her pediatrician's office. Um, but everyone, even if I was really emotional during a couple of them, um, like I learned just one little extra thing that helped. Even if it was really small, it ended up making a big difference in the long run. So definitely use those consultations and consultants, especially if it's a part of your hospital stay, um, or if it is covered by insurance. Like that's huge and helps get feeding off on the right track. Trying to think of what else. Sleeping. Our little baby sleeps great most of the time. The hardest part is you do, until they're at their birth weight, you do have to wake up every 2 to 3 hours during the night to feed them. Our pediatrician said, though, that once she's back at her birth weight, which we're going back in for a weigh-in on Wednesday, so just a few more days away, we can start to let her sleep longer stretches. If we can get to 4 or 5 hours, we'll be fine. It's just like, because, and they say 2 to 3 hours, that doesn't mean you stop feeding your baby and then it's 3 hours. It's 3 hours from the start of the feeding. And so we feed her, it's at 9, midnight, 3, and 6 in the morning. And so it's, you start feeding at 3 a.m. You have to get up to feed her again at 6 a.m. Hi, I know. I'll get you out of here in just a second. And so that, like, you really only get max 2 hours of sleep, especially when you're starting. If she's fussier or hungrier or won't go back to sleep, it's usually, you get an hour to an hour and a half of rest in between wakings, which really does suck, and it does start to take a toll on you. Especially for me, it wasn't so much physically, it was more mentally exhausting, just because you would go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep, wake up. Or you'd go to sleep and she would be like asleep, and then like the worst is when she's asleep but then she starts to wake up in the middle, in between feedings, and you have to like put her back down because she doesn't want to all the time. She usually wakes up because she wants something or needs something, so you have to figure out what that is. But yeah, the newborn trenches, as they call them, they really are real. It is a lot of work, but like I said, it is worth it, and she's doing so good, so we're so proud of her and happy about that. Trying to think if there's anything else. Most of the time, though, all I want to do is hold my baby and be near her and just cuddle her and love her to death, which is good. Good for her, good for me. It made our bond a lot stronger. My poor husband, he's like, I need to work on my bond with her because I'll hand her to him, and a lot of times she'll start fussing because she's like, who is this guy? But he's getting better. He's learning like how to calm her down and all that. It is a lot harder for the partner, especially if you're breastfeeding. At least it's hard right now. We do want to get into a cycle where one of her nightly feeds is like pumped milk eventually. Which is why we're working on pumping right now. We're obviously not to that point. But we will hopefully get there within the next couple weeks. But it is harder because feeding is a time where you really can bond with your baby because they realize, oh, this human's giving me food. It's like with dogs, right? They're like, oh, this human's giving me food. I'll love them forever. That's kind of like what it is with your baby in a way. But especially when you're breastfeeding, you're also doing that skin-to-skin contact still. So it's even more so because you're releasing all the oxytocin, all the happy hormones, both for you and baby. And so it is a little bit harder on the partner to, feel like they have that bond or that time to bond, especially when feeding takes such a big chunk out of the day. But yeah, Emmer's doing great still, and he's just such a good dad and a good partner. He tries to wake up at every feeding just to help, one, keep me awake, and then number two, to just so that he's not like, the typical internet dad or the typical bad dad where they just sleep through the whole night while the partner has to get up. The mom has to get up and do all the feedings and diaper changes and everything, and it's really great. He's been really awesome that way. yeah, I guess other things is we're not really going out to any family, like big family parties or gatherings, just because it's cold season already and we don't want to risk her getting anything, especially when she's so little. So luckily our family has been very understanding of that. Um, but it is kind of like a weird guilt right now, especially on my mom's side, because we did have a big family um, like medical thing pop up. I won't disclose what it is because that person has asked, well, hasn't told me that we can, and I think she wants to keep it quiet. But we're just trying to spend, as much time as a family. And so, like, they are having more family dinners and gatherings, which is awesome. Um, but it's hard because like we can't go to those right now. Um, just because, like, even though I do know everybody on that side is vaccinated and everybody is, you know, they're very clean people. There's a lot of people coming from college all across the state. Um, and, there's still a lot of people like with kind of grabby hands that may not wash their hands before they touch her. And so um, it's just a precaution thing that we're doing. But there is like a weird guilt about that, which shouldn't be. But in this situation right now, that is kind of a guilt that we're having. But yeah, we are trying just to do. We have freezer meals that we did beforehand, which have been coming in clutch because neither of us want to cook. And so even like last night when we were cooking our last freezer meal, and by cooking I mean we threw it in the oven for 20 minutes. Like neither of us wanted to do that, and so even that was like asking a lot of us. So it's been nice just to have something we can really quickly, portion out and throw on the stove or in the microwave and just eat really quickly. That's also fairly nutritious and good for us. I know. So I would suggest doing that if you can. Oh, you're okay. Where's your binky? You want your binky? No, you don't want it. Well, that might be a good place to end it. I mean, I think I went through most of the postpartum and birth things that I wanted to discuss on here. The other thing was I wanted to go over like our mostly used items these first couple weeks. And like purchases we ended up making last minute. I guess by last minute after we gave birth, but we can do that in a different video. Maybe when we're a little further along, because there's different things that you use at different stages. Like right now we can't use her baby bouncer because she is not big enough. We can't use the maybe baby carrier yet, which I know we're going to use a ton of, but she's not to that weight yet that she needs to be able to fit in it. And obviously we can't really use her 0 to 3 month clothes. We had to buy newborn size clothes because she ended up being smaller than we thought she would be, which is totally fine. Luckily they were on sale at Old Navy for $5 each, so that was great. But yeah, there's like different things that you use at different stages, and so we're excited to see, because we feel like we made great choices. We already know the stroller is a great choice. My husband used it for the first time last week, and he's like, we did real good with this. I'm like, I know. I did so much research on this stupid stroller. I know it was a good purchase. So, but yeah, so there's like little things like that would be fun to maybe in a separate video go over. But this is probably going to be the last video I make on anything pregnancy and baby related. Besides maybe that update video, we'll go back to just knitting content on this channel now. And then just, little baby updates, I guess, at the end of my knitting content. But yeah, other than that, we're doing great. We're no longer pregnant. Oh, I guess the one thing is my nausea. Literally the morning after giving birth, I got so hungry. And I hadn't felt hunger like that in a long time. And so they brought the breakfast and the lunch that they bring from the hospital. And my mom and dad brought us food too, and I ate all of it. And I wasn't nauseous. I'm gonna cry thinking about this. But I wasn't nauseous for the first time in 9 months. And it was one of the greatest miracles of all time. And I'm like, okay, I can live again. It's okay. It was worth it. I did it for my baby. I'm no longer sick. And now I can eat food because it tastes good and because I want to, not because I have to stay alive and to keep baby growing. So that's been a huge, huge like weight off my shoulders and blessing. And then obviously we have a healthy little girl in our world now. So all great things. We'll leave it on that note. If you are pregnant and struggling, like you can make it. It is worth it. Um, but also, there were a bajillion people that told me, oh, just wait till you have her on your chest after. You're going to want another one. We do not want another child. No way, Jose. We love this one with all of our heart. But I never want to go through pregnancy ever again. Nor do I want to go through labor and delivery again. It was a sweet experience to do it once, and it was definitely worth it. But I never want to do that again. Um, yeah, I wish that I was one of those people that liked it because it would be, it was always a dream of mine growing up to have a big family. But that's just not, that's not going to be, I think, what we end up having. We're going to, I think, have a very small, but, a very small family, but one full of love. And if we do decide that little Celeste um, needs a sibling or we want to have another one, we're going to look at adoption first because there are a lot of kids out there that they do need good homes and good parents. And if we get to that point where we want another one, I think that's what we will end up doing because I do not want to go through the last 9 months again. Well, I guess it was 9 months before she was born. Terrible. It was terrible, but worth it now that she's here. But again, I never wanted to do that again. Um, yeah, and having experience, I also had people tell me too that this will be the political thing. So if you don't like political things, you can just leave. And then I'll wrap up the video after this. But a lot of people too was like, your stance on abortion is gonna change after you have a kid. No, I still think if people they should have the choice. Just because I chose to to be pregnant and to have this baby, it does not mean I need to force that idea on somebody else, or even on my future self. Obviously, I probably still won't have one in the future, but if I were to get pregnant again, it would be a really, really difficult thing for me to like go all the way again, just because I know how hard and difficult it is for my body. Um, but other people should be able to have that choice whether they want to be pregnant or not, especially if it's before, you know, a certain pointer in their life, in the baby's life. Um, but yeah, anyways, that's all my political stuff for today. That's all about labor, delivery, birth, postpartum. That's my whole experience. Um, yeah, just take it easy. If you are in your postpartum phase, if you are pregnant, know that it will end at some point and it will get better, especially if you're really sick like I was. I promise you, because now I have been through it and I have, I'm at the light at the end of the tunnel now, thank goodness. Um, but yeah, anyways, you all stay safe out there. Have a great one. Respect moms. They go through a lot. I've realized that now. And be kinder to women. We're strong, but the world doesn't treat us kindly, so make sure that you treat people kindly. But yeah, anyways, have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.